Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am excited to introduce to you Laura Watson. And let me tell you a bit about Laura. She is the founder and lead business coach at Venture Coaching International in Calgary. With over 25 years of counseling and coaching experience, she helps business owners and executives across North America to improve their personal communication and leadership effectiveness. Laura graduated with an MSW from the University of Calgary and received her coaching certification from Coach U and the International Coach Federation. Her expertise and commitment in personal mastery were recognized by the Calgary Association of Professional Coaches and the Universal Women's Network. Laura tailors her coaching programs to meet individual needs. She is an expert in bridging theory to practice, so clients get focused, improve productivity, and take their personal and business leadership to the next level. So when Laura is not in the boardroom, you'll find her in the ballroom. She is a 2023 World Country Dance champion, passionate about taking her dance skills to the next level. We're going to talk about how to plan and work your plan for faster results. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Laura Watson. Laura, so happy to have you on. And it sounds like a fellow country lover, music lover, huh?
Yeah, it didn't start off that way, but I have learned to enjoy country.
Yeah. So being a Pittsburgh girl and then moving to the South, I always kind of liked country. And then, I'm 66 years old, so it kind of was a little twangy a bit whenever I was young. But I just love the stories and I'm a huge country fan right now.
Awesome.
So, and I've only been to Calgary one time, and it was in the winter.
Oh, so that's not a great time to come unless you ski.
I did not get to enjoy some of the beautiful countryside because I was locked in a meeting room for 3 days, but do hope to someday get back because it's like the wild, wild west of Canada.
Well, definitely. Come back in the summer, come back in July, check out the Calgary, the Stampede. It truly is the greatest outdoor show on earth.
Awesome.
And it's definitely a phenomena that's worth experiencing.
We'll have to add that to my list for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. So we always start with 2 easy questions for you. The first is to just explain where you live. I did give that away somewhat, but have you always lived in the Calgary area?
Well, it feels like a long time now. It's been just over 30 years that we've been out west. I actually grew up in Southern Ontario and met my husband at the University of Windsor, right across the river from Detroit.
Yeah.
So that's where we did our undergrads. And then the master's degree that I wanted to do was only offered in 2 locations in Canada. One was Winnipeg, otherwise known as Winterpeg. So didn't want to go there. So it's like, okay, Calgary's the other choice. There's mountains, there's beautiful scenery and a great school. So we got married and drove across country and planted our roots there, raised a family, and now we actually live in central Alberta, a couple of hours north of Calgary. We decided to get out of the city and get out onto an acreage, which we absolutely love.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
So I gave a lot of your accolades about your journey now as a coach and all the things you did with that, but I'd like to unpeel the onion a little bit and talk about,
Mhm.
as you left that college and what were the paths on your journey that ultimately led you to where you are today?
Oh, well, great question. I've always been interested in leadership, for one, and helping create change. I mean, my original
Yeah.
degree was in social work, and I was always passionate about helping people. Um, that started off in the counseling arena and the nonprofit arena.
Mm-hmm.
My MSW is actually in management and leadership. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
pursue a clinical specialty because of that passion and leadership. And I played some leadership roles while I was in the nonprofit sector. And then I got to a place in my own career. My kids were starting full-time school, and I was starting to look at, where do I want to continue to contribute and make a difference? And so I actually hired a career coach and did some self-exploration. My husband had his first company at the time, and he was just throwing himself into his company, which is what entrepreneurs do. They're
Yes.
right.
Yes.
They get all consumed by it. And he had hired a business coach
Right.
to help him build his company. And so, as part of my exploration and working with a career coach, I interviewed his business coach and said, I'm not familiar with this thing called business coaching and what have you. This, what's this all about? And that gentleman was named Keith. And Keith was coaching entrepreneurs from a perspective that he called higher purpose, higher profit,
Nice.
which Simon Sinek, if you're familiar with his work at all, talks a lot about purpose.
Yeah.
And that really excited me. It's like, wow, this idea of business owners, it's not just about making profit.
That's
Obviously,
right.
profit is important, but to be approaching business from a perspective of creating change and making a difference for your
Mm-hmm.
customers, for your employees, and for the world in general, if that's
Yeah.
the scale that you want to take it. That really excited me. So I chose business coaching as my next career and actually joined forces with Keith for a number of years
Wow.
to go about helping entrepreneurs get connected with that sense of making a difference, taking themselves, as helping them lead themselves more effectively and then lead their companies, more effectively so that they could go out into the world and be more productive, more effective, and more profitable. So that's really how it started. And now here we are 20 plus years later and still loving it.
Awesome. So, what is the secret to executing a good business plan? As entrepreneurs, a lot of times we go in and we like to do something, and so we start a business, but we don't really do that foundational piece, the business plan. If you want to get any money from anybody, you need to have. So, talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Simplicity is one of the secrets of the business plan, and it's interesting to be talking about this today because for a long time, I admit I avoided writing a business plan. It felt too hard. I didn't want to do it. So I could procrastinate and avoid like there was no tomorrow. And when I really embraced it was was a few years ago, actually, when I came across a book called Traction.
Mm-hmm.
I love that book. And what they talk about is an EOS, or entrepreneurial operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a simple 2-page business plan format that
Nice.
I've adopted. I use myself and I use it with my clients. And it really is simplicity. And there's really 3 secrets to making a business plan work. We first of all have to know what we want to accomplish. Then we have to figure out how we're going to do it. And then the real secret sauce is when are we going to do it? Because that's the part we don't do. The first block seems to be a lack of clarity about what we want to accomplish. And if we can get through that block, then I find what business owners don't do is they don't figure out how they're going to do it. So they have lofty goals, or they write down those goals on a piece of paper or in a digital file, and then that file collects dust. They set it aside and they don't revisit it. So what I do now for myself and with my clients is I help them reverse engineer their businesses with their plan. So what that looks like is we look at some foundational elements for sure. We look at core values and some marketing strategy and ideal client definition. And then we get into the future. So we look at, where do you want to be 10 years from now? What's your age and stage of life going to be 10 years from now? Are you going to be retiring? Are you going to have kids in college? Are you going to be looking at selling your business? So we look at 10 years time frame, and then we start the reverse engineering process by looking next at 3 to 5 years, so that we can create alignment in the goals and objectives for that future that we want to create. Right. And then once we're clear on that 3 to 5 year time frame, then we take it a step further and we look at, what do we want to accomplish in the coming year? That again is in alignment with 3 to 5, which is in alignment with 10. Once we're clear on that 1 year, so we have a sense of what we want to accomplish within that year time frame, we then continue the reverse engineering process and break that down into quarters, because we can't work on a whole year's worth of goals all at once. Yeah. So we prioritize those annual goals and we break them down into which quarter are we going to work on those particular goals, which is starting to touch on the when piece, right? Once we know, for example, which goals we're working on in Q1, then I use another tool called a scorecard that helps my clients look at here's the 3 or 4 goals we're working on this quarter. Now, how are we going to accomplish those? We break those goals into action steps. So for 1 week at a time. So we don't plan out an entire quarter, because things can change throughout the quarter, and we have overwhelming. It is. It gets overwhelming, and we have to continue to be able to be adaptive. So we take those goals and we look at 1 week at a time. What action steps, or how am I going to work on these goals for 1 week? And then that last piece of the equation is when. So we pull out the calendar and we say, okay, I need an hour to take this particular action step, and I'm blocking it in my calendar, and I know that I'm going to do that on Tuesday morning. And then this other action step, that's going to take me 2 hours of thinking. So I'm blocking that into Wednesday afternoon. And that's the process that I follow, that I get my clients following, is that simple 2-page reverse engineered plan, broken down into quarterly and then even quarterly goals, weekly action steps plugged into the calendar. And when we follow that then consistently, and consistency is the key and often the challenge, but when we work on that and through that consistently, I find my clients meet or exceed their goals, which is so exciting to see happen.
As a past project manager, what she's describing to you is exactly what I would put in a project plan. My projects usually were multi-year, multi-function projects. And so I had, this is the short-term goals, this is the midterm goals, this is the long-term goals, maybe 5 years out that we want to accomplish. But having that written down and knowing who's going to do what and when was always key. And a project plan, though, is, as she was saying, a living document that you continually look at and change and say, what percent are you here? Are you going to make that? Should you adjust? So all of those things for a simple business plan seem to be aligned with a project plan. And so figure out what works best for you, but the key is to do it.
Just do it. Yes.
Just do it.
That's the hard part, right? Because
It is.
entrepreneurs,
It
their
is.
minds are going a mile a minute. They've got so much on the go. They're leading a team, and
Mhm.
the distractions are everywhere, whether it's
Yeah.
email or text or phone calls or what have you. And so a lot of my clients also find that those goals and objectives that they have are a little too ambitious. They're trying to do too much too fast. And because it's overwhelming, that's where breakdown occurs. And
Mhm.
so I find that by slowing down, the expression is slow down to speed up.
Mhm.
Slowing down, planning it. And when they plan it, they can also see what they need to do themselves and what they can delegate.
Yeah.
Just because it's their plan, they should not be doing it all themselves. They should be
Mhm.
focused on the activities that are the highest value things that only they can do, and they can delegate the rest. But if they don't have the plan and they don't know what actions need to be taken, they can't delegate, which
Mhm.
keeps them stuck. So I find the plan is helpful for their own execution and to be able to delegate out to others so that more can happen faster.
There's a couple things there too. One is risk avoidance. When you write it all down, it brings the aha moment. Oh, well, those two things kind of conflict, and so it's not going to happen unless I make a change in the plan. And the second piece is historical value. So once you had that wonderful effort of a year, and it's no longer, well, what did I do to accomplish all that? How did that happen? You can look back and say, oh, that worked great. Or, well, that I tried to do that. I thought this was going to be a great plan, but it just wasn't enough time, or didn't have all of the people that I needed to make it work right. So that lessons learned piece of a good plan is also important.
Absolutely. That's what I like about the scorecard tool,
Mm-hmm.
which I pulled out of another book called The 12-Week Year.
Oh, yeah,
And
I've read that.
yeah, great book.
It is. It
And
is.
because that's how you get execution happening. And what I like about that scorecard tool is it gives you the opportunity to plan your action steps on each goal, but it also gives you an opportunity to reflect at the end of the each week. What worked
Yeah.
well? What were the wins? What were the breakdowns? So that, again, we can adjust and adjust in the moment on a week-to-week basis versus adjusting after a quarter has gone by or a whole year has gone by, because then
Yeah.
there's a lot of wasted time that could have been used differently had we reflected sooner.
And it also calls out that piece that sometimes is where things break down, is the poor communication. So if you're looking at these things more frequently, then the communication is not broken down, that something that you might not have seen, somebody else's eyes on it may have, and again, avoid that perhaps fail. So how can
Absolutely.
leaders and business owners be able to set stronger boundaries, knowing when to say
Oh,
no and knowing when to say yes?
boundaries. Well, that's an interesting topic
Mm-hmm.
that I've been having with lots of people lately. Entrepreneurs are they're doers and they're action takers and are often fixers.
Yeah.
And so they think because it's their company, it's their business, that they have to solve all the problems. And that's when often, boundaries get blurred because
Yeah.
they're jumping in and trying to fix problems for other people and for their team members. And when they do that, they forget or don't realize that actually prevents their team members from learning how to solve their
Yeah.
own problems.
Yeah.
So a leader doesn't have to be a fixer of all the problems. A leader can be a facilitator of their team members solving problems. Oftentimes they just need to show up and listen and trust that people can solve their own problems given the time and opportunity to do so. And sometimes that time and opportunity is just about thinking out loud with someone else to be able to bounce those ideas off of,
Yeah.
right? So that's one way a leader can set some boundaries, is to just show up and listen differently, and let their colleagues, let their employees come to them with their challenges, not fix it for them, but let them talk it out, think through the challenge, get reconnected with the goal or objective so they can think through how they want to solve the problem themselves. And then if their employees really stuck, again, they can become a facilitator of the problem solving by helping their employee brainstorm solutions, and then maybe contributes to the brainstorming as well. And then once they've got some ideas brainstormed, they can evaluate those solutions. They can walk through the choosing of which path they want to take, implement that whatever solution they've chosen, and then circle back and debrief. Did that solution actually work? Because I find that that's another thing that people don't do. They just go on to solving the next problem. So brainstorming, choosing solution, implementing, going back and debriefing really becomes a methodical way of solving problems, and then develops a team's ability to solve their own problems rather than the entrepreneur having to always fix it for them. So that's one great way to start putting in boundaries, is to know what's yours to deal with and what's not yours to deal with.
That's right. I used to have a mentor that whenever I had an issue or problem, at the very beginning, when we were setting expectations, he says, okay, if you have a problem, I'm happy to help you with it. So when you come in, tell me about the problem. Always come with a solution that you think you should do with the problem. So it's not just having me tell you how to fix it, but I want to know that you were thinking about how to fix it as well. So that was always very instrumental and so helpful as a project manager, because as a lead, you often have to do the same thing.
Absolutely. I've had lots of my clients who are, of course, are business owners complain to me. It's like, I want them to bring me solutions. All they do is bring me problems all the time. It's like, well, what kind of conversation are you having with them when they bring you those problems? Well, I fix it. I'm like, well, you're actually contributing to the problem. If you ask them to bring you solutions, they're more likely to do so. So yes, I'm right with you there.
It's like the baby that throws the cup the first time and you pick it up, and they throw it again and you pick it up and you throw it, and it becomes
What
a game
great
to
game.
them. Well, why should I figure out how to get the cup myself? Because you're going to get it for me every time.
Exactly.
That's the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
So how can leaders be able to deliver in the very best way critical feedback? As a coach, I think this is a skill that really is important, but not always done well. So how can we deliver that critical feedback that has the person that leaves with the self-esteem and the determination to do something about it, as opposed to feeling defeated and a failure?
Yeah, that's a great question. Feedback is something that I used to really struggle in receiving. I remember with some of my early supervisors in the nonprofit sector, I would get literally choked up when I was receiving feedback. And it's to the point where I had this lump in my throat and I couldn't even speak in the conversation. And it was because I was taking that feedback personally. I don't think my supervisor intended it that way, but that's how I was hearing it. So feedback is a really, really powerful skill for leaders to master. And in order to master it, there's a number of things that leaders can do. One is to time the delivery of their feedback. Feedback's important for people to hear, absolutely. And people aren't always in a mood or mindset to be able to hear. So I always ask my leaders to ask permission to give feedback, and at a time when the person's going to be open and able to hear it. So ask for timing, and ask permission, and to share the intent of the feedback. Usually a leader is providing feedback because they want their person to grow and develop and be more successful. And so it's important to remind the person that we're delivering feedback to that that really is our intent. I'm showing up here today to share something. It may be difficult for you to hear, but I'm sharing it because I think it's going to help you grow. So by sharing the intent of the feedback, that helps create a framework or a context for the conversation. So I think that's very important. And then as they go into the feedback conversation, it's important to use what I call I messages, and also to be very specific about the behavior that's a concern and not our judgments of the behavior.
Yeah.
So specificity and clarity, very important. So for example, I have a client who's been wrestling with some feedback that she recently received from her supervisor, because her supervisor told her that she was too aggressive in her communication. But she had no idea what aggressive meant, right? Because aggressive is a label. It's
That's right.
Right? And so he wasn't sharing what's the specific words were that she was using that had her come across as aggressive. So she was confused and didn't know how to change her behavior.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to her was that she go back to her supervisor and ask him specifically, what does aggressive look like? What does he mean when he says that? So that she could understand better the language that she was using that was coming across as aggressive. And because if she knows the exact behavior or words that she's using, then she can change her approach. Right. And that's what I find a lot of leaders are vague in their feedback. I had another leader say, oh, I need you guys to step up. Well, what does step up mean? What does that look like? It's not specific enough. And when the leader is not specific enough with their feedback, they're going to get frustrated because they're not going to get the results that they're looking for. So clarity, specificity, super important. And again, I messages. And I messages are things like, when you do this, describing the behavior, I experience this, or I feel this. So that again, it's the leader expressing their experience of the situation, their experience of the other person. And it takes the pressure off and the criticism off of the other person and prevents them from feeling attacked. That's really what created the lump in my throat so many years ago, is that I felt attacked. And when people feel attacked when receiving feedback, they're going to get defensive. They may go quiet, but they're going to react in some way. So the leader's role is to not have them feel attacked, to be very specific and clear with the communication, use I messages so that it keeps the person open to hearing it. And then I think their feedback messages are going to be much more successful.
Couple things with that. I remember in my early days, I always talk about the butt messages or the butt evaluations. And I had a great, my first supervisor I ever had was a female, and she had great skills. Every time I had an evaluation, she would tell me all the things that I was doing well, that she was so happy with, so impressed with. And then you just waited there for the butt.
For the butt.
And then the thing that she did, though, that was so great is she did but and.
Yes.
So you did this thing not correct. And if you would have just did this a little bit different, the results would have been different. And so she gave examples. So I know I always then took that as I was evaluating my folks to keep a log. Because as you said, sometimes it's not the right time to approach them for lessons learned. They're not in the right mind frame or whatnot. But if you can't recall later what it was, then the lesson is hard to teach. So I always would write, things that happened, how I felt, how people were reacting to it, just to bring to light, because sometimes people don't observe. the reactions
no.
of others. They don't watch the facial changes or the body
Mhm,
language. And so they don't see what's happening. And
mhm,
therefore, they're not going to correct it because they're not aware. So just having that journal that you can just bring back the information to say, well, this is what you've done this time, this time, this time, all the same kind of bad reactions. So maybe if we did this a little differently in this situation, the results
mhm.
most likely would have been different. And so that's where I learned a lot about the butt evaluations.
Yes, and
But
is a great tool. I recommend it all the time. Just take but out of your vocabulary because everything leading up to the but, you've got all that good news. Here's your wins. Here's what I really like. But the but dismisses
mhm,
all of that good stuff.
yeah.
So you've got all this good stuff, and here's
Hmm.
something that could be done differently. And also sharing the impact that
Yes.
someone's behavior is having. Because yes, people
Right.
are walking around with their blinders on. They're just so focused on the task at hand and what they're doing. They're not seeing the impact often that their behaviors are having on others. And so that's part of the feedback conversation is when you do this, this is the impact it has.
Yeah.
And that will create the insight for the person, which is what the feedback is designed to do, is give someone information or an insight that they didn't have before so that they can change their behavior and be more effective.
The other thing, one of the ways I teach in communication and leadership is using improv, because the whole yes and type of thing. And it's funny when you first do the exercise, especially I work with young people as well. And so when you have high schoolers or whatnot, and there's a situation, a scenario presented, and they tend to just, instead of going to the positive, they'll just say, and your mom died or something. And it's like, and so it's like, but yes, and can have you, you're supposed to then always make it that that situation is in the positive. And it's a skill that has to be developed because our society, especially with the social media and things, is to always go to the sarcastic or the negative to
Mhm.
be, cool. And yet it's, we don't realize how those words, those things we're doing tear down the positive and the self-esteem of the person that we're interacting with.
Yes. Yeah, great points.
So how do we delegate more effectively? I know we touched on this earlier, but it is something that, especially if you're a solopreneur, that went from being in corporate to where people are telling you what to do all the time, and now it's your business, your baby, your vision, your mission.
Yeah.
How do you be able to use your strategic mind, but allow operationally things to be delegated to others?
Yeah, delegate. So many clients complain, I can't delegate because I never get what I want. And, it's just easier for me to do it myself, which keeps them stuck, right? They only
Yeah.
have so many hours in a day. They can only do so much. They have to delegate at some point. And I'm going to reference another great book because I do a lot of reading and I love, there's fabulous tools out there. And so I love referencing them. And there's a great little delegation book written by Donna Gennett. And it's called If You Want It Done Right, You Don't Have to Do It Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another book that I have a lot of my clients read. And what she talks about is, and again, what I find is a lot of my owners are not clear in their communication. So they may delegate a project
Yeah.
and they, one of the things Donna talks about is they don't delegate the level of authority. They're not clear about the
Yeah.
level of authority someone has. So sometimes, depending on the person's skill that you're delegating to, sometimes they only have task authority. You're delegating them to do a specific task. Whereas someone like yourself, you were a project manager, so you were delegated with projects and you had decision-making authority in those projects.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different levels of authority we need to be mindful of. And then when we're communicating whatever we're delegating, lots of people that we're delegating to, they'll just nod, yeah, that's what you, oh yeah, okay, got it. But they don't got it.
Yeah.
But they're afraid to speak
That's
up and
right.
say they don't got it because they think it's going to make them look stupid or that they don't know enough. So they just say, and then they walk away from the conversation. The leader thinks, oh, they got it, and goes off to do whatever he's going to do. And then this other person is, well, that isn't clear. And then will, fudge it, or will procrastinate on it, or do whatever they do. And then the leader gets frustrated because they don't end up getting what they want. So I find a great tool as part of the delegation conversation is active listening. And what that means is the leader will delegate whatever they're delegating, have that conversation, and then they need to take a moment through in the conversation and ask the person that they're delegating to, what is your understanding of our conversation so far? Tell me what you've heard so far. There's different ways to phrase it. And what they're asking for with that question is they're asking the person that they're delegating to paraphrase back their understanding of what they're being tasked with. And that's really the only way that the leader can ensure that they've communicated what they thought they communicated, and that the person they're delegating to understands it the way they need to understand it. In that paraphrasing back, or that active listening back, if the person, if it's clear that they don't fully understand the task or the situation or what needs to be done, then the leader has an opportunity to re-clarify and re-communicate until clarity is established. Because once clarity and understanding is established and confirmed, then the person can go off and do what they've been tasked to do. And the leader is going to be much more satisfied with the results they get back because the delegation was clear. So I find that is one of the biggest tool and most effective tools leaders can use, is to incorporate a request for active listening from the people they're delegating to, so that they can ensure clarity of their delegation.
Great advice. And what I found, especially in our world now with remote workers, a lot of my projects, I had teams across the world. And so if I had that initial meeting or whatnot with delegating anything, assigning task, I always made sure it was not a phone call. I wanted to see their eyes. I wanted to see their body language, so that when I asked those questions, rather than getting that, oh, yeah, I got it, as they're recounting or recapping what was asked of them, you can also see if they are asking it in it really, they're repeating what you said, but you can tell from their body language, their eyes, that they didn't really get it. And then well, let me just ask some more questions. And I just, that came from an early project I had where I had some Asia folks, and it was just a conference call. There was no video at that time. And they kept on saying, yes, yes. Because also culturally, to say, I don't get this, was not good. And so,
no, not acceptable. No.
Yes. And so I needed to set expectations in those early times to say, it's okay to have a question. I want to have questions, and it's okay to challenge what we want to do, because you might have a better reason. So now you can save face, it's okay. It's okay. But I couldn't have any more of the, yeah, they're nodding online. Oh, I've got to put my hand down from that one. Thank you. Thank you. The Zoom. So, but it's okay to do that. But I never did any further meetings that were important like that to set the expectations, except on camera. And today people need to know that whenever they're doing virtual meetings and trainings, is the value of this environment, to really say, nobody with cameras off. Sorry, everybody has to have cameras on.
Yes.
And be able to see and hear what is being said to be understood.
Absolutely.
So how can leaders grow into the next level? You know, you have your plan, you've worked your plan, and you want to move faster, but you've got this down, you think, but now you've got a whole new team perhaps coming in. And so you have people that are comfortable with the way you do things, and now you have new people. How do you bridge that gap of the communication piece to make sure that everybody is on the same page?
Well, I mean, communication is key. I mean, and that's another benefit of having a plan with a vision
Yeah.
documented and core values, because when you're bringing new people into your team, you're the leader and they're following you, and they're following you because you're going somewhere, somewhere exciting, and they want to be a part of the journey. So that's why the leader has to know where they're going, have have their vision, documented, and be sharing that vision frequently, because that's why people want to follow you. But skills are actually pretty easy to hire for. The harder part to hire for is fit. And because it's is there fit around core values? And because if there is, great, the relationships are going to be much easier. But if there's not, if you don't have a fit around values and working style, then you're going to feel like you're clashing all of the time. And so someone can have the greatest skills in the world, but if they don't, the values fit isn't there, if the ways of working or operating, aren't aligned, then you're going to run into difficulties. And so it's really, I invite my clients to hire based on the characteristics of the person and the attitude of the people that they're hiring, because you can't train attitude.
That's right.
You can train skill, but you can't train attitude. So that's another important thing, is first for the owner to have clarity about what they're looking for themselves, so that then they can hire and bring people on board that are a fit with that. Because it's all about alignment. Is when we have focus and alignment with our goals and objectives and our people, then we're going to get to that next level faster. It's when there's a lack of alignment and we're going off in all these different directions and tangents, that the roller coaster ride exists, and we go off on one path and then have to get back refocused again. So really alignment. And even if it feels like we're going slower in the beginning to create that alignment, I'm going to circle back to the comment I made earlier, which is slow down to go faster. Put the time and effort, invest in the clarity, the vision, the goals, the objectives, and the values and the characteristics of the people that you want to have on your team with you. Do that in the beginning, and you will create the alignment that will create faster traction to move forward with. So
true. Well, time has flown by, and it's time now for me to share contact information of Laura with you all. So if you're just listening, you should have been taking notes all along. So much great information shared so far. But if you haven't, please go grab a paper and pencil. If you're watching, though, yay for you. You're going to be able to get a screenshot. As always, all of my information is on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com and the show notes. So for those that are just watching, you want to be able to go to venturecoaching.ca. That's venturecoaching.ca. On LinkedIn is her name, Laura Watson. On Facebook, it's Laura Watson with an S at the end. Again, that's Laura Watson with an S at the end. And YouTube is at Venture Coaching International. I'm going to turn it over to Laura to talk to you about her call to action for today.
Well, thanks so much. We started off talking about having a plan and working your plan in order to get to the next level. And that's actually available for free on my website. So when you do go to venturecoaching.ca, you'll see a free tab. And there's a number of resources there. One of them is a business accelerator toolkit. And that toolkit is there to lead people through this conversation of the big picture for your business, where you're headed, and then we'll help you reverse engineer your business down to those quarterly goals and objectives and action steps, and has a bit of time management tools in there as well, because that's always something that we're having to deal with. So that's really the best way to take it the next step, is to visit the website, go to that free page. There's also ebooks on that free page that deal with giving feedback, like we talked about today, communication effectiveness, like we've talked about. So there's 10 or 12 resources on that page, and that people are welcome to take advantage of.
Fantastic. So, Laura, so great chatting with you. I loved all the things you shared, such great information, and I wish you all the best in connecting with my audience. Hopefully, you all will take advantage of the great information she has shared today, and connecting with her if it is something that will help you in your pursuit.
Yeah, if it's a fit, I'm always open to having a conversation. So would
Awesome.
love to chat with people if they've got questions or want to know more about any of the things we've talked about today. I'm more than happy to jump on a Zoom call like this with someone, or a phone call, and connect.
Awesome. So as always, I remind my audience that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.